Question 1. What factors determine the most effective strategy for optimizing resource allocation for a critical production application within a shared vSphere 6.7 environment, considering potential impacts on other workloads? Option A. Prioritizing the application's resource needs above all other workloads, regardless of their criticality or resource demands. Option B. Establishing a baseline of the application's current performance and resource consumption, analyzing historical data, and understanding its peak demand periods before implementing any resource adjustments. Option C. Arbitrarily reducing the application's allocated resources to free up capacity for other less critical virtual machines. Option D. Immediately allocating the maximum available CPU and memory resources to the application to ensure it never experiences any performance bottlenecks. The correct answer is B. Establishing a baseline of the application's current performance and resource consumption, analyzing historical data, and understanding its peak demand periods before implementing any resource adjustments. Explanation. The scenario involves a vSphere administrator tasked with optimizing resource allocation for a critical production application. This is professionally challenging because incorrect decisions can lead to performance degradation, service outages, and potential financial or reputational damage to the organization. The need for careful judgment stems from balancing resource availability, application requirements, and the potential impact on other workloads sharing the same infrastructure. Adhering to best practices ensures stability, efficiency, and compliance with internal policies and potentially external service level agreements, SLAs. The correct approach, focusing on understanding application performance baselines and resource consumption patterns before making adjustments, represents best professional practice. This is justified by the principle of informed decision-making, which is a cornerstone of IT governance and operational excellence. By gathering data and analyzing it, the administrator avoids making arbitrary changes that could have unforeseen negative consequences. This proactive, data-driven methodology aligns with the general principles of IT service management and risk mitigation, ensuring that changes are implemented with a clear understanding of their potential impact. An incorrect approach that involves immediately allocating maximum available resources to the application without prior analysis is professionally unacceptable. This fails to consider the potential for resource starvation for other critical services and violates the principle of equitable resource distribution. It also ignores the possibility that the application may not actually require such high allocations, leading to wasted resources and increased operational costs. Such an approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the overall health of the virtual environment. Another incorrect approach, such as arbitrarily reducing resources for the application based on a perceived need for consolidation, is also professionally unsound. This bypasses the critical step of understanding the application's actual performance requirements and could lead to severe performance issues or outright failure. It demonstrates a reactive rather than proactive stance and risks violating SLAs or impacting business operations. Finally, an approach that prioritizes the application's resource needs above all other workloads without any consideration for their criticality or resource demands is flawed. This can lead to a domino effect of performance degradation across the infrastructure, impacting multiple business functions. Professional decision-making requires a holistic view of the environment and a balanced approach to resource management, ensuring that all critical services are adequately supported while optimizing overall efficiency. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem or objective. 2. Gathering all relevant data, including application performance metrics, infrastructure utilization, and business requirements. 3. Analyzing the data to identify root causes and potential solutions. 4. Evaluating the potential impact of each proposed solution on the entire environment. 5. Implementing the chosen solution with a rollback plan. 6. Monitoring the results and making further adjustments as needed. This systematic approach minimizes risk and maximizes the likelihood of a successful outcome. Question 2. When evaluating the management of virtual machine templates in a vSphere 6.7 environment to ensure a secure and compliant infrastructure, which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for ongoing security and operational efficiency? Option A. Only update virtual machine templates when a critical security vulnerability is identified and actively being exploited in the production environment. Option B. Manually update individual deployed virtual machines from a base template without updating the base template itself, focusing on immediate application deployment needs. Option C. Implement a scheduled process for regularly patching and updating virtual machine templates with the latest security updates and configuration hardening, followed by rigorous testing before redeploying them. Option D. Update virtual machine templates solely when a new application is being deployed to the environment, ensuring the template meets the specific needs of that new application. The correct answer is C. Implement a scheduled process for regularly patching and updating virtual machine templates with the latest security updates and configuration hardening, followed by rigorous testing before redeploying them. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in managing the lifecycle of virtual machine templates within a vSphere 6.7 environment, specifically concerning the balance between maintaining up-to-date security configurations and ensuring operational stability and rapid deployment capabilities. The core difficulty lies in establishing a consistent and compliant process for template updates without introducing unintended risks or inefficiencies. Adherence to best practices, as implicitly guided by the principles of IT governance and operational excellence relevant to professional certifications like the 2V0-2119, is paramount. This involves understanding the implications of template management on security posture, compliance requirements, and overall system performance. The correct approach, which involves a structured process for patching and updating templates, represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the need for a secure and compliant infrastructure. By regularly updating templates with the latest security patches and configuration, administrators minimize the attack surface and reduce the risk of vulnerabilities being deployed across the environment. This proactive stance aligns with the principles of defense in depth and continuous security improvement, which are fundamental to maintaining a robust IT ecosystem. Furthermore, a documented and repeatable process ensures consistency, reduces human error, and facilitates auditing, all of which are critical for compliance and operational efficiency. An incorrect approach that involves neglecting template updates until a critical security incident occurs is professionally unacceptable. This reactive strategy represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for established security protocols and a failure to exercise due diligence in protecting the organization's data and systems. Such negligence can lead to breaches, data loss, and significant financial and reputational damage, potentially violating data protection regulations and industry standards. Another incorrect approach, which is to update templates only when a new application is deployed, is also professionally flawed. While it might seem efficient in the short term, it creates an inconsistent security posture. Environments may end up with a mix of templates with varying levels of security patching, leaving older deployments vulnerable. This ad hoc approach undermines the principle of consistent security management and can lead to compliance gaps, as it fails to ensure that all deployed systems meet current security baselines. Finally, an approach that involves manually updating each deployed virtual machine from a base template without updating the template itself is inefficient and prone to errors. This bypasses the core benefit of using templates for standardization and rapid deployment. It also means that the source of truth for the deployment configuration is not being maintained, leading to inconsistencies and making it difficult to enforce security policies across the entire fleet. This failure to maintain a standardized and secure template base is a significant operational and security oversight. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes proactive security, compliance, and operational efficiency. This involves understanding the organization's risk tolerance, regulatory obligations, and business requirements. A systematic approach to template management, including regular review, patching, testing, and redeployment, should be integrated into the operational workflow. This ensures that the virtual infrastructure remains secure, compliant, and capable of supporting business objectives effectively. Question 3. Cost-benefit analysis shows a significant upfront cost saving by adopting a new storage solution that is advertised as being highly efficient, but its integration with the existing vSphere 6.7 environment is not fully documented, and the internal team has limited experience with this specific vendor's technology. What is the most prudent approach to evaluating this opportunity? Option A. Conduct a proof of concept POC to validate integration, performance, and manageability within the current vSphere 6.7 environment and assess the training needs for the internal team. Option B. Engage a third-party consultant to perform a full migration and ongoing management of the new storage solution without further internal evaluation to leverage their expertise. Option C. Proceed with the implementation immediately to realize the projected cost savings, assuming the vendor's claims are accurate and any integration issues can be resolved post-deployment. Option D. Decline the new solution due to the lack of comprehensive integration documentation and the team's limited experience, opting to maintain the current, well-understood storage infrastructure. The correct answer is A. Conduct a proof-of-concept POC to validate integration, performance, and manageability within the current vSphere 6.7 environment and assess the training needs for the internal team. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, balancing the immediate benefits of a new technology with the long-term implications of its integration and support. The professional must evaluate not just the upfront cost savings, but also the potential for increased operational complexity, the need for specialized skills, and the impact on existing workflows and security postures. The challenge lies in making a decision that is technically sound, financially responsible, and compliant with organizational policies and best practices, all while ensuring business continuity and minimizing risk. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation that extends beyond the initial cost savings. It prioritizes a thorough assessment of the proposed solution's compatibility with the existing vSphere 6.7 environment, considering factors such as integration complexity, potential performance impacts, and the availability of skilled personnel to manage and support the new technology. This aligns with best practices for IT infrastructure deployment, which emphasize due diligence, risk assessment, and alignment with strategic IT goals. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible resource management and the safeguarding of the organization's IT assets and operational integrity. It ensures that decisions are data-driven and consider the holistic impact on the business, rather than being swayed by short-term financial incentives alone. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution solely based on the projected cost savings without a thorough technical and operational assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach ignores potential hidden costs, such as increased training requirements, integration challenges, and the risk of system instability, which could ultimately outweigh the initial savings. It also fails to consider the compatibility with the existing vSphere 6.7 environment, potentially leading to performance degradation or security vulnerabilities, which could violate compliance mandates related to data integrity and system availability. Adopting a solution without considering the availability of skilled personnel to manage and support it is another critical failure. This can lead to prolonged downtime, security breaches, and an inability to leverage the full capabilities of the technology, all of which have regulatory implications concerning operational resilience and data protection. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and responsible planning, potentially exposing the organization to undue risk. Prioritizing a solution simply because it is a newer, more advanced technology, without a clear understanding of its benefits and drawbacks in the specific context of the existing vSphere 6.7 environment, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to unnecessary complexity, increased costs, and a failure to achieve the desired business outcomes. It suggests a decision-making process driven by trends rather than by a strategic assessment of needs and capabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the problem or opportunity. This is followed by identifying and evaluating potential solutions, considering technical feasibility, operational impact, security implications, and financial viability. A critical step is to conduct a thorough risk assessment for each viable option. The decision should be based on a comprehensive analysis that weighs the benefits against the risks and costs, ensuring alignment with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. This iterative process of evaluation, assessment, and validation helps to ensure that the chosen path represents the most responsible and effective course of action. Question 4. Implementation of vSphere High Availability (HA) and Distributed Resource Scheduler (DRS) for a newly deployed mission-critical financial trading application requires careful consideration of the existing virtualized environment. The current environment hosts several other critical applications, including a legacy ERP system and a customer-facing web portal, all of which rely on the stability and performance of the underlying vSphere infrastructure. The administrator must ensure that the new application receives the necessary resources and resilience without negatively impacting the performance or availability of these existing critical services. What is the most appropriate course of action for the administrator to take? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive resource utilization analysis of the existing environment and the new application's requirements, followed by a phased implementation of vSphere HA and DRS with targeted configurations for each workload. Option B. Configure vSphere HA and DRS with default settings for all virtual machines in the cluster, assuming that the default configurations will adequately balance the needs of all applications. Option C. Immediately enable vSphere HA and DRS for the new financial trading application to ensure its immediate availability and performance, and address any potential issues with existing applications later. Option D. Disable vSphere HA and DRS for the legacy ERP system and the customer-facing web portal to free up resources and prevent potential conflicts with the new application's resource demands. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive resource utilization analysis of the existing environment and the new application's requirements, followed by a phased implementation of vSphere HA and DRS with targeted configurations for each workload. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of vSphere HA and DRS in maintaining application availability and performance. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate need for resource allocation to a new, high-priority application with the potential for unintended negative impacts on existing, critical workloads. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the implementation of new features does not compromise the stability and performance guarantees of the existing environment, which could lead to service disruptions and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing environment and the new application's requirements before making configuration changes. This proactive, risk-aware methodology aligns with the principles of responsible IT management, emphasizing due diligence and impact assessment. By performing a detailed analysis of resource utilization, interdependencies, and potential conflicts, the administrator ensures that the implementation of vSphere HA and DRS is optimized for both the new and existing workloads, thereby minimizing the risk of performance degradation or service outages. This approach is implicitly supported by best practice guidelines for IT service management, which advocate for change management processes that include risk assessment and testing. An incorrect approach that involves immediately enabling vSphere HA and DRS for the new application without prior analysis would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an action demonstrates a disregard for the stability of the existing infrastructure, potentially violating service-level agreements, SLAs, with internal or external stakeholders. This haste could lead to resource contention, causing existing critical applications to perform poorly or become unavailable, which is a direct failure to uphold professional responsibilities. Furthermore, implementing changes without proper testing and validation is a breach of IT governance principles, increasing the likelihood of unforeseen issues and potential data loss or corruption. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling vSphere HA and DRS for existing applications to accommodate the new one, is also professionally unacceptable. This action directly undermines the purpose of these features, which are designed to enhance resilience and optimize resource utilization. It creates a two-tiered system where some applications are deliberately left unprotected and inefficient, which is a failure to provide consistent and optimal service levels. This approach also ignores the potential for future growth and the need for a robust, automated infrastructure. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to change management. This includes 1. Clearly defining the requirements and objectives of the proposed change. 2. Conducting a thorough impact assessment, considering both direct and indirect consequences on existing systems and services. 3. Developing a detailed implementation plan, including rollback procedures. 4. Performing rigorous testing in a non-production environment. 5. obtaining necessary approvals. 6. Executing the change during a planned maintenance window. And 7. Post-implementation monitoring and validation. This systematic process ensures that changes are implemented safely, effectively, and with minimal disruption. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows a vSphere administrator is planning to implement a new high-performance storage array for a critical production virtual machine environment. The primary goal is to improve application response times and increase storage capacity. The administrator has identified several potential implementation strategies. Which strategy best balances the need for rapid deployment with the imperative to minimize risk and ensure business continuity? Option A. Rely exclusively on the storage vendors' provided scripts and automated tools for the entire migration process without any independent testing or validation of the procedures. Option B. Implement the new storage array and migrate all production virtual machines simultaneously during a period of high user activity to demonstrate the immediate benefits of the new hardware. Option C. Perform an in-place migration of all production virtual machines directly to the new storage array during a scheduled maintenance window, assuming the vendor's compatibility documentation is accurate. Option D. Conduct a pilot deployment of the new storage array with a subset of non-critical virtual machines, followed by a phased migration of production workloads after successful validation and establishment of a comprehensive rollback plan. The correct answer is D. Conduct a pilot deployment of the new storage array with a subset of non-critical virtual machines, followed by a phased migration of production workloads after successful validation and establishment of a comprehensive rollback plan. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a vSphere administrator is tasked with implementing a new storage solution for a critical production environment. This presents a professional challenge due to the inherent risks associated with modifying production infrastructure, including potential downtime, data loss, and performance degradation. The administrator must balance the need for improved storage capabilities with the imperative to maintain service availability and data integrity. Careful judgment is required to select an implementation strategy that minimizes disruption and ensures a successful transition. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased rollout with thorough testing and rollback capabilities. This aligns with industry best practices for change management and risk mitigation, ensuring that any unforeseen issues can be addressed promptly without impacting the entire production environment. Specifically, it demonstrates adherence to principles of due diligence and professional responsibility by proactively identifying and mitigating potential risks. This approach minimizes the likelihood of service disruption, which is a key ethical and professional obligation when managing critical IT systems. An incorrect approach that involves a direct, in-place migration without adequate testing or a rollback plan is professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a failure to exercise due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on business operations. Such an approach could lead to significant downtime and data loss, violating the administrator's professional duty to maintain system stability and protect organizational assets. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing the new storage solution during peak business hours without prior communication or a contingency plan, shows a lack of professional foresight and consideration for stakeholders. This can result in severe business disruption and erode trust in the IT department. A third incorrect approach, relying solely on vendor documentation without independent validation or internal testing, represents a failure to apply critical thinking and professional judgment, potentially leading to the adoption of an unsuitable or insecure solution. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that includes thorough risk assessment, detailed planning, phased implementation, comprehensive testing, and robust rollback procedures. This framework ensures that all potential impacts are considered and that the chosen solution is implemented in a manner that is both effective and responsible. Prioritizing communication with stakeholders and obtaining necessary approvals are also crucial steps in this process. Question 6. The audit findings indicate that the current vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler (DRS) automation level is set to fully automated for all virtual machines, including those hosting sensitive financial data. This configuration has been flagged as a potential risk due to the possibility of unexpected VM migrations that could disrupt critical business processes or expose data to less secure network segments during the migration process. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this audit finding? Option A. Review the criticality of each virtual machine and adjust DRS automation levels accordingly, potentially setting less critical VMs to manual or partially automated, while retaining fully automated for essential, well-protected workloads. Option B. Ignore the audit findings and maintain the current fully automated DRS setting, assuming the risk is negligible. Option C. Disable DRS automation entirely for all virtual machines to eliminate any risk of unexpected VM migrations. Option D. Increase the DRS automation level to aggressive for all virtual machines to ensure maximum resource optimization and minimize any potential for performance bottlenecks. Correct answer is A. Review the criticality of each virtual machine and adjust DRS automation levels accordingly, potentially setting less critical VMs to manual or partially automated, while retaining fully automated for essential, well-protected workloads. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential security vulnerability related to vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler, DRS, automation levels. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of vSphere's security implications, the potential impact of misconfigurations on compliance, and the ability to balance operational efficiency with security best practices. The challenge lies in identifying the most secure yet functional DRS configuration without compromising the availability or performance of critical virtualized workloads, all while adhering to the implicit regulatory expectations of maintaining a secure and auditable environment as per the 2V0-21-19 exam scope. The correct approach, which involves reviewing and potentially adjusting DRS automation levels based on specific workload criticality and security policies, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, ensuring that sensitive workloads are protected by more stringent controls. It demonstrates a proactive security posture, where configurations are regularly assessed for their security implication. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the integrity and confidentiality of data and systems, and it is professionally responsible by ensuring that the infrastructure is managed in a way that minimizes risk and meets implicit compliance standards for secure operations. An incorrect approach that involves disabling DRS automation entirely for all workloads is professionally unacceptable. While it might seem like a security measure by removing automated actions, it severely impacts operational efficiency and resource utilization, potentially leading to performance degradation and increased manual intervention, which itself can introduce human error and security risks. This approach fails to acknowledge the intended benefits of DRS and demonstrates a lack of nuanced understanding of security controls. It could be seen as a failure to implement appropriate security measures, as it overcompensates by removing functionality rather than configuring it securely. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the audit findings and maintain the current DRS automation levels without further investigation, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates negligence and a disregard for potential security risks. It directly contravenes the professional responsibility to maintain a secure and compliant environment. Such an action could lead to a breach, data loss, or service disruption, all of which would have severe consequences and reflect poorly on the professional's judgment and adherence to industry best practices. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves increasing DRS automation levels across the board without a thorough risk assessment is also professionally unsound. This could inadvertently expose less critical or more sensitive workloads to automated actions that might not be appropriate, potentially leading to unintended consequences or security vulnerabilities. It shows a lack of due diligence and a failure to apply risk-based security principles, which are fundamental to professional IT management. A professional reasoning process for such a situation should involve 1. Understanding the audit finding and its potential implications. 2. Assessing the criticality and security requirements of the affected workloads. 3. Researching and understanding the specific security features and configurations of vSphere DRS. 4. Evaluating different configuration options against the identified risks and operational needs. 5. Implementing the chosen configuration with proper change control and documentation. 6. regularly reviewing and re-evaluating the configuration to ensure continued security and compliance. Question 7. The assessment process reveals that a growing number of junior system administrators require access to manage virtual machines across multiple clusters within the vSphere environment. To expedite their onboarding and ensure they can perform their tasks efficiently, a senior administrator is considering assigning them a broad administrative role that grants full control over all virtual machines and their associated resources. What is the most professionally responsible approach to address this requirement? Option A. Assign a highly permissive built-in administrative role to a global Active Directory group containing all junior administrators, granting them full control over all virtual machines and their associated resources. Option B. Disable all role assignments within vCenter and instruct junior administrators to manage virtual machines directly via host credentials. Option C. Create custom roles with specific permissions tailored to the tasks junior administrators need to perform, and assign these roles to the relevant vCenter objects, e.g., folders containing virtual machines. Option D. Develop a complex set of overlapping custom roles that grant various levels of access, allowing junior administrators to select the most appropriate role for each task. Correct answer is C. Create custom roles with specific permissions tailored to the tasks junior administrators need to perform, and assign these roles to the relevant vCenter objects, e.g., folders containing virtual machines. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common implementation challenge in vSphere environments, ensuring consistent and secure access control across a growing number of virtual machines and users. This scenario is professionally challenging because a misconfiguration can lead to unauthorized access, data breaches, or operational disruptions, all of which carry significant reputational and financial risks for the organization. The need for granular control, adherence to security best practices, and efficient management of permissions requires careful planning and execution. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages vSphere's built-in role-based access control (RBAC) mechanisms to delegate specific privileges to users and groups based on their job functions. This principle of least privilege is a fundamental security tenet, minimizing the attack surface and reducing the likelihood of accidental or malicious misuse of administrative rights. By assigning predefined or custom roles to specific vCenter objects, like data centers, clusters, or individual virtual machines, administrators ensure that users only have the permissions necessary to perform their duties, thereby enhancing security and operational integrity. This aligns with general IT security best practices and the principle of defense in depth. An incorrect approach that involves granting broad administrative privileges to a large group of users is professionally unacceptable. This violates the principle of least privilege, creating a significant security vulnerability. If any user within that group has their credentials compromised, the attacker gains extensive control over the vSphere environment, potentially leading to widespread data loss or system compromise. This failure to implement granular access controls directly contravenes established security frameworks and best practices, increasing the organization's risk profile. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling all role assignments and relying solely on direct host credentials for management, is also professionally unsound. This bypasses the centralized management and auditing capabilities of vCenter Server, making it extremely difficult to track user actions, enforce policies, or troubleshoot issues effectively. It also negates the benefits of RBAC, leading to inconsistent security postures across the environment and increasing the administrative overhead for managing individual host permissions. This approach is inefficient and insecure, failing to meet the requirements for a robust and manageable virtual infrastructure. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves creating overly complex and redundant custom roles without a clear understanding of their implications can lead to confusion and unintended consequences. While custom roles offer flexibility, their misuse can inadvertently grant excessive permissions or create permission conflicts, undermining the intended security controls. This highlights the need for a systematic and well-documented approach to role creation and assignment, ensuring that each role serves a specific, well-defined purpose and adheres to the principle of least privilege. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of user roles and responsibilities, a clear understanding of vSphere RBAC capabilities, and a commitment to the principle of least privilege. Administrators should start by identifying the distinct functional groups within the IT department and their respective access needs. Then, they should evaluate existing vSphere roles or design custom roles that precisely match these needs, ensuring that no unnecessary privileges are granted. Regular audits of role assignments and permissions are crucial to maintain security and adapt to evolving organizational requirements. Question 8. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in latency for several critical virtual machines across multiple data stores, impacting user experience and application responsiveness. Initial investigation reveals that while individual VM CPU and memory utilization is within acceptable limits, overall host CPU ready time is elevated, and data store I/O latency is sporadically high. What is the most appropriate next step to diagnose and resolve this performance degradation? Option A. Systematically analyze the resource consumption of individual virtual machines to identify specific processes or applications causing excessive CPU or I/O demands, and correlate this with host-level resource contention and data store I/O wait times. Option B. Increase the allocated CPU and memory resources for all virtual machines experiencing latency to ensure they have ample resources available, regardless of current utilization. Option C. Immediately migrate all affected virtual machines to a newly provisioned, dedicated XC host with higher specifications to isolate them from potential resource contention on existing hosts. Option D. Focus solely on optimizing the network configuration for the affected virtual machines, as network latency can often manifest as application performance issues. The correct answer is A. Systematically analyze the resource consumption of individual virtual machines to identify specific processes or applications causing excessive CPU or I/O demands, and correlate this with host-level resource contention and data store I/O wait times. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in virtualized environments where resource contention can impact application performance. The challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of performance degradation and implementing a solution that addresses the underlying issue without introducing new problems or violating best practices. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the potential for widespread impact across multiple tenants, necessitates a methodical and informed approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of the vSphere environment, starting with the most granular level of resource allocation and contention. Analyzing individual VM resource usage, host resource utilization, and data store performance provides the necessary data to pinpoint the bottleneck. Identifying specific VMs consuming excessive resources or experiencing I/O contention allows for targeted remediation. This aligns with professional best practices by ensuring that solutions are data-driven, minimize disruption, and address the actual cause of the problem. It avoids speculative changes that could worsen the situation or impact other tenants. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a blanket increase in CPU and memory for all VMs without specific data is a speculative and potentially wasteful approach. It fails to identify the root cause and could lead to over-provisioning, increasing licensing costs, and potentially masking underlying issues on specific hosts or data stores. This approach lacks professional rigor and could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in resource management. Isolating the affected VMs to a dedicated host without understanding the cause of their high resource consumption is a reactive measure that might temporarily alleviate symptoms, but doesn't solve the underlying problem. The issue could be application-specific, a configuration error, or a broader infrastructure bottleneck. This approach risks migrating the problem or creating new resource contention on the dedicated host, demonstrating a lack of comprehensive problem-solving. Ignoring the data store performance metrics and focusing solely on VM-level resources overlooks a critical component of the storage I/O path. I/O wait times on the data store can significantly impact VM performance, regardless of individual VM resource allocation. Failing to investigate this potential bottleneck represents a significant oversight in a comprehensive performance analysis and a departure from best practices in troubleshooting virtualized storage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a baseline, then collecting and analyzing relevant metrics from all layers of the infrastructure, VM, host, storage. This data-driven approach allows for accurate diagnosis and targeted remediation. When faced with performance degradation, a structured troubleshooting methodology, such as the OSI model adapted for virtualization, should be employed. This involves systematically examining each layer, from the application to the physical hardware, to identify the point of failure or contention. Prioritizing solutions that address the root cause over symptomatic relief is crucial for long-term stability and efficient resource utilization. Question 9. The performance metrics show a consistent degradation in vCenter server responsiveness, impacting the ability to manage virtual machines and monitor their health. This slowdown is not isolated to a single XE host, but appears to affect the entire vCenter environment. What is the most appropriate initial course of action to diagnose and resolve this issue? Option A. Initiate an upgrade of the vCenter server to the latest available version to leverage performance improvements. Option B. Immediately apply the latest available vCenter server patch to all managed XE hosts to ensure consistency. Option C. Reconfigure the network settings for the vCenter server to optimize its communication with XE hosts. Option D. Analyze vCenter server's internal resource utilization, CPU memory, disk I/O, and review its performance-related logs for errors or anomalies. The correct answer is D. Analyze vCenter server's internal resource utilization, CPU memory, disk I/O, and review its performance-related logs for errors or anomalies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical vSphere component, vCenter server, is experiencing performance degradation impacting multiple virtual machines and services. The challenge lies in diagnosing the root cause accurately and efficiently without causing further disruption, especially in a production environment. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions, making a systematic and informed approach crucial. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation, starting with the most likely culprits for vCenter server performance issues. Analyzing vCenter server's own resource utilization, CPU memory, disk I/O, is paramount. If these are within acceptable limits, the next logical step is to examine the underlying infrastructure, specifically the XE hosts and their resource contention, as well as the network connectivity and latency between vCenter and its managed components. This aligns with best professional practice by following a top-down troubleshooting methodology, prioritizing the most direct causes of vCenter performance issues. It also adheres to the principle of least impact, ensuring that any diagnostic steps taken are unlikely to exacerbate the problem. In a professional context, this systematic approach minimizes the risk of misdiagnosis and ensures that remediation efforts are targeted and effective, ultimately safeguarding the stability and availability of the virtualized environment. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, unverified patch across all XE hosts without isolating the issue to a specific host or cluster is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the principle of change management and risk assessment, potentially introducing new problems or worsening existing ones across the entire environment. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on business operations. Reconfiguring the vCenter server's network settings without a clear understanding of the network's role in the performance issue is also professionally unacceptable. It represents a reactive and potentially disruptive action that could lead to complete loss of connectivity and further service outages. This demonstrates a failure to follow a structured troubleshooting process and a disregard for the potential consequences of unverified changes. Upgrading the vCenter server to a newer version without first diagnosing the current performance bottleneck is a premature and potentially costly decision. While upgrades can sometimes resolve performance issues, they are not a guaranteed solution and can introduce their own set of complexities and compatibility problems. This approach bypasses the critical step of root cause analysis, leading to an inefficient use of resources and a higher risk of introducing new, unforeseen issues. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first gathering comprehensive data, then formulating hypotheses, and finally testing those hypotheses in a controlled manner. This involves understanding the interdependencies within the vSphere environment, from the physical hardware to the vCenter server and the virtual machines. A structured troubleshooting methodology, such as the OSI model adapted for virtualization, helps to systematically isolate the problem. Prioritizing actions that have the least potential for negative impact is essential, especially in production environments. Documenting all steps taken and their outcomes is also a critical aspect of professional practice, aiding in future problem solving and knowledge sharing. Question 10. The risk matrix shows a high probability of storage capacity exhaustion and a moderate risk of performance degradation across multiple vSphere 6, 7 data stores. The current storage infrastructure is nearing its limits, and there is an urgent need to address this to maintain operational stability. What is the most professional and effective approach to resolve this vSphere storage capacity challenge? Option A. Analyze data access patterns and implement a storage tiering strategy to move less frequently accessed data to lower-cost, higher-capacity storage tiers, while ensuring critical data remains on high-performance tiers. Option B. Migrate all virtual machines to a single, newly provisioned, large-capacity data store to consolidate storage. Option C. Immediately expand all existing data stores by adding new LUNs to the SAN to accommodate the growing data volume. Option D. Implement a policy to delete all virtual machine snapshots older than 7 days to free up space. Correct answer is A. Analyze data access patterns and implement a storage tiering strategy to move less frequently accessed data to lower-cost, higher-capacity storage tiers, while ensuring critical data remains on high-performance tiers. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for increased storage capacity with the long-term implications of data integrity and compliance. The risk matrix highlights potential data loss and performance degradation, which are critical concerns in a virtualized environment. A hasty decision without proper consideration of the underlying causes and potential solutions could lead to significant operational disruptions and regulatory noncompliance. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a storage tiering strategy based on data access frequency and criticality is the best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the root cause of storage pressure by optimizing resource utilization. It ensures that frequently accessed, critical data resides on high-performance storage, while less critical data is moved to lower-cost, higher-capacity tiers. This aligns with best practices for cost management, performance optimization, and data lifecycle management, which are implicitly expected under general IT governance principles that underpin regulatory compliance. By proactively managing storage, the risk of data loss due to capacity exhaustion is mitigated, and performance issues that could impact business operations are minimized. This demonstrates a responsible and strategic approach to infrastructure management. Incorrect approaches analysis. Expanding all data stores indiscriminately without analyzing data usage patterns is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to address the underlying problem and leads to inefficient resource allocation, increasing costs without guaranteed performance benefits. It also increases the attack surface and management overhead unnecessarily. From a compliance perspective, it could be argued that such a broad, unanalyzed expansion might not represent a prudent use of resources, potentially falling afoul of internal governance or audit requirements related to IT expenditure and efficiency. Migrating all virtual machines to a new, larger data store without considering the performance characteristics of the new storage is also professionally unsound. This could lead to performance bottlenecks if the new storage is not adequately provisioned for the workload. It also ignores the potential for data tiering, which could have provided a more cost-effective and performance-optimized solution. This approach risks degrading the user experience and potentially impacting business-critical applications, which could have indirect compliance implications if service-level agreements are breached. Implementing a strict, arbitrary data retention policy to reduce storage usage without considering business needs is a regulatory and ethical failure. This approach prioritizes storage reduction over data availability and business continuity. It could lead to the premature deletion of essential data, violating data retention regulations or internal policies, and hindering forensic investigations or business operations. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of data governance and its importance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such challenges by first conducting a thorough assessment of the current environment, including storage utilization, VM performance metrics, and data access patterns. This data-driven approach allows for the identification of root causes and the evaluation of various solutions. The decision-making process should involve considering the impact on performance, cost, security, and compliance, prioritizing solutions that offer a balance of these factors, such as storage tiering, demonstrates strategic thinking and adherence to best practices in IT infrastructure management. Question 11. Cost-benefit analysis shows that continuing to operate on the current vSphere 6.7 environment, which is approaching its end of general support, will result in significant cost savings in the short term by avoiding immediate upgrade expenses. However, this decision also introduces potential risks related to security vulnerabilities and compliance with industry standards that mandate the use of supported software. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the IT team? Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the existing vSphere 6.7 environment for performance, assuming that security and compliance risks are manageable without an upgrade. Option B. Immediately begin planning and executing an upgrade to a currently supported vSphere version, prioritizing security and compliance over short-term cost savings. Option C. Continue operating on vSphere 6.7 and implement additional third-party security tools to mitigate potential risks, deferring the upgrade indefinitely. Option D. Lobby management to extend the support contract for vSphere 6.7, even though it is nearing end of general support, to maintain the current operational costs. The correct answer is B. Immediately begin planning and executing an upgrade to a currently supported vSphere version, prioritizing security and compliance over short-term cost savings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between immediate cost savings and long-term security and compliance. The vSphere 6.7 environment, while still supported, is nearing its end of general support, and continuing to operate on it without a clear upgrade path introduces significant risks. The ethical dilemma lies in balancing the financial pressures of the organization against the professional responsibility to maintain a secure and compliant infrastructure. Careful judgment is required to assess the true cost of inaction, which includes potential security breaches, compliance violations, and operational disruptions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes proactive risk management and adherence to vendor support lifecycles. By initiating the upgrade process, the organization aligns itself with VMware's support policies, ensuring access to critical security patches and technical assistance. This proactive stance mitigates the risk of vulnerabilities being exploited and avoids potential noncompliance with industry regulations that often mandate up-to-date software. It demonstrates a commitment to maintaining a robust and secure IT environment, which is a fundamental ethical obligation for IT professionals. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on extending the life of the current vSphere 6.7 environment without a defined upgrade plan presents specific regulatory and ethical failures. This could lead to a violation of internal security policies and potentially external compliance mandates that require the use of supported software. Operating on an unsupported platform exposes the organization to known vulnerabilities for which no patches will be released, creating a significant security risk. Ethically, this is a failure to exercise due diligence in protecting organizational assets and data. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing third-party security solutions as a workaround for the lack of vendor support is also professionally unacceptable. While these solutions might offer some mitigation, they do not address the underlying issue of an unsupported platform. This can create a false sense of security and may not be sufficient to meet regulatory compliance requirements, which often specify the use of vendor-supported and patched software. Furthermore, relying on such workarounds can lead to increased complexity and potential integration issues, ultimately increasing operational risk. A professional decision-making framework for similar situations involves a thorough risk assessment, considering both technical and business implications. This includes evaluating the likelihood and impact of security incidents, compliance failures, and operational disruptions. It also requires understanding the vendor's support lifecycle and planning for upgrades well in advance of end-of-support dates. Engaging stakeholders, including management and relevant compliance officers, To communicate the risks and propose solutions is crucial. The decision should be based on a comprehensive understanding of the total cost of ownership, including the cost of security breaches and compliance penalties, not just the immediate expenditure on new licenses or services. Question 12. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk associated with a temporary workaround for a critical vSphere 6.7 feature that is required for immediate project deployment. The workaround involves bypassing a specific security validation step to meet the go-live deadline, with the understanding that a permanent, compliant fix will be implemented post-deployment. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Proceed with the workaround without documentation or formal approval, citing the critical project deadline and the temporary nature of the deviation. Option B. Implement the workaround, document the deviation and associated risks, obtain formal approval for the temporary measure from relevant stakeholders, and immediately schedule the permanent fix. Option C. Refuse to implement any workaround, insisting on a fully compliant solution that will cause significant project delays without exploring any controlled exceptions. Option D. Implement the workaround and assume it will be addressed in a future patch, without any formal notification or approval process. The correct answer is B. Implement the workaround, document the deviation and associated risks, obtain formal approval for the temporary measure from relevant stakeholders, and immediately schedule the permanent fix. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical imperative to maintain data integrity and system security while facing pressure to deliver a project under tight deadlines. The core conflict lies between the immediate need for a functional system and the long-term risks associated with bypassing established security protocols. A professional in this situation must balance stakeholder expectations with their responsibility to uphold industry best practices and regulatory compliance, which are paramount in a regulated environment like that governed by the 2V0-21-19 Professional vSphere 6.7 Exam 2019 Syllabus. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach, which involves documenting the deviation, obtaining formal approval for a temporary workaround, and planning for immediate remediation, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT management and the implicit regulatory expectations of maintaining audit trails and controlled changes within a virtualized environment. By documenting the risk and seeking explicit authorization, the professional ensures transparency and accountability. The commitment to immediate remediation demonstrates a proactive stance towards mitigating the identified security vulnerability, thereby upholding the integrity and security of the vSphere environment as expected under professional standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the workaround without documentation or approval, citing project urgency. This constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses change control processes, which are fundamental to maintaining system stability and security. This lack of documentation makes it impossible to track the deviation, assess its impact, or ensure it is properly addressed later, potentially leading to unmanaged vulnerabilities and audit failures. Another incorrect approach is to refuse to implement any workaround, insisting on a full, compliant solution that will cause significant project delays. While adherence to best practices is crucial, an absolute refusal without exploring controlled exceptions can be professionally detrimental. It fails to acknowledge the practical realities of project management and stakeholder needs. While not a direct regulatory violation, it can be seen as a failure in professional judgment and communication, potentially damaging client relationships and project outcomes without a clear justification of overriding security risks. A third incorrect approach is to implement the workaround and assume it will be addressed later without any formal notification or approval. This is ethically unsound and carries significant regulatory risk. It creates an undocumented security gap, making the system vulnerable and potentially non-compliant with security policies. The assumption that it will be fixed later is a dereliction of duty and can lead to the permanent neglect of the issue, leaving the organization exposed. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. First, identify and clearly articulate the security risk and its potential impact. Second, explore all compliant solutions, even if they require more time. Third, if a compliant solution is not feasible within the project constraints, identify potential workarounds and assess their associated risks. Fourth, Document the proposed workaround, the identified risks, and the proposed mitigation plan. Fifth, formally communicate this information to relevant stakeholders, e.g., project manager, security team, management, and seek explicit, documented approval for the temporary deviation. Finally, ensure that a plan for permanent remediation is established and prioritized. This process ensures that decisions are made with full awareness of the risks, are transparent, and are aligned with professional and regulatory expectations. Question 13. System analysis indicates that a critical vSphere 6.7 infrastructure upgrade is scheduled, which will involve the migration of virtual machines containing sensitive customer financial data. The project timeline is aggressive, and the IT team is concerned about the potential exposure of this data during the migration process, even with existing network security measures in place. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach to managing the sensitive customer data during this upgrade? Option A. Proceed with the data migration as planned, relying on the existing network security protocols to protect the sensitive customer financial data during transit and at rest. Option B. Implement robust data anonymization or pseudonymization techniques on the sensitive customer data prior to the migration, ensuring that the data itself is de-identified before it is accessed or moved. Option C. Inform all affected customers about the potential risks of data exposure during the upgrade and obtain their explicit consent to proceed with the migration. Option D. Postpone the infrastructure upgrade indefinitely until a future date when more advanced, but currently unavailable, data encryption solutions can be implemented. The correct answer is B. Implement robust data anonymization or pseudonymization techniques on the sensitive customer data prior to the migration, ensuring that the data itself is de-identified before it is accessed or moved. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within a virtualized environment, specifically concerning the handling of sensitive customer data during a planned infrastructure upgrade. The core dilemma lies in balancing the operational necessity of accessing and potentially migrating this data with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect it from unauthorized disclosure or compromise. The pressure to meet project deadlines can create a temptation to bypass established security protocols, making careful judgment and adherence to best practices paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment and the implementation of robust data anonymization or pseudonymization techniques before any data is accessed or migrated. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and privacy by design, which are fundamental to data protection regulations. By anonymizing or pseudonymizing the data, the organization significantly reduces the risk of exposing sensitive customer information, even if the migration process encounters unforeseen security breaches. This proactive measure demonstrates a commitment to safeguarding customer privacy and adhering to the spirit and letter of data protection laws, ensuring that the upgrade can proceed without compromising confidentiality. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the data migration without any specific data protection measures, relying solely on existing network security. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it disregards the inherent risks associated with handling sensitive data, even within a seemingly secure network. It violates the principle of due diligence in data protection and exposes the organization to severe penalties for data breaches. Another incorrect approach is to postpone the upgrade until a later date when resources for advanced encryption can be allocated. While seemingly cautious, this approach fails to address the immediate need for infrastructure improvement and can lead to operational inefficiencies. More importantly, it represents a missed opportunity to implement privacy-preserving techniques during the upgrade process itself, which is often the most opportune time for such measures. It also doesn't inherently solve the problem of data handling during the upgrade, merely delaying it. A third incorrect approach is to inform the customers about the potential risks and obtain their consent to proceed with the migration. While transparency is important, relying solely on consent for sensitive data handling during an upgrade is insufficient. Regulations often mandate specific technical and organizational measures to protect data, and consent alone does not absolve the organization of its responsibility to implement these safeguards. This approach shifts the burden of risk to the customer without adequately mitigating it through technical controls. Professional reasoning. professionals should employ a risk-based approach, prioritizing data protection throughout the project lifecycle. This involves identifying sensitive data, assessing potential risks to its confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and implementing appropriate controls. When dealing with sensitive data, especially during infrastructure changes, the default should be to apply privacy-enhancing technologies like anonymization or pseudonymization. This proactive stance not only ensures regulatory compliance, but also builds customer trust and upholds professional ethical standards. The decision-making process should involve consulting with data protection officers, legal counsel, and security experts to ensure all relevant regulations and best practices are considered and implemented. Question 14. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical production virtual machine is experiencing performance degradation, impacting customer-facing services. While investigating, you discover that the virtual machine's disk contains what appears to be personally identifiable information, PI of customers. Your immediate technical instinct is to access the virtual machine's console and analyze the disk directly to diagnose the issue. However, you are aware of the strict data privacy regulations governing customer data. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Obtain explicit authorization from the data owner or a designated compliance officer to access the virtual machine, and if possible, ensure the data is anonymized or pseudonymized before direct analysis. Option B. Proceed with direct console access and disk analysis immediately to resolve the performance issue as quickly as possible, as customer service is being affected. Option C. Escalate the issue to management and wait for further instructions, even if it means prolonged downtime for customer services. Option D. Ignore the potential presence of PII and focus solely on the technical performance metrics of the virtual machine, assuming the data is not relevant to the immediate troubleshooting. The correct answer is A. Obtain explicit authorization from the data owner or a designated compliance officer to access the virtual machine, and if possible, ensure the data is anonymized or pseudonymized before direct analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma concerning data privacy and compliance within a virtualized environment. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for troubleshooting with the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive customer data, which is protected by regulatory frameworks. The professional must navigate the tension between operational urgency and their fiduciary duty to protect client information. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established data handling policies and regulatory requirements. By seeking explicit authorization and ensuring data anonymization or pseudonymization, the professional upholds the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to data protection regulations. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance, mitigating the risk of data breaches and associated legal repercussions. This aligns with the principles of responsible data stewardship expected of IT professionals. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with direct access to the virtual machine without proper authorization or data protection measures. This constitutes a violation of data privacy regulations, potentially leading to unauthorized access and disclosure of sensitive information. It also breaches internal company policies regarding data access and handling, exposing the organization to significant legal and reputational risks. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the potential for sensitive data and proceed with troubleshooting based solely on technical necessity. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the regulatory obligations surrounding customer data. It fails to acknowledge the inherent risks associated with accessing systems that may contain protected information, even if the intent is purely technical. A third incorrect approach is to delay troubleshooting indefinitely due to fear of data exposure, without exploring legitimate avenues for resolution. While caution is warranted, an inability to address critical issues can negatively impact business operations and customer service, and may also contravene service-level agreements. The professional responsibility includes finding compliant solutions, not avoiding necessary tasks altogether. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential risks, e.g., data breach, regulatory noncompliance, assessing their likelihood and impact, and then implementing appropriate controls. In situations involving sensitive data, This framework mandates seeking proper authorization, understanding the data involved, and applying anonymization or pseudonymization techniques where feasible. If these measures are not possible, escalation to legal or compliance teams for guidance is the appropriate next step. The goal is to achieve operational objectives while maintaining the highest standards of data protection and ethical conduct. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates a significant performance bottleneck in a critical application hosted on vSphere 6. 7. While investigating, a junior administrator discovers a potential configuration shortcut that could drastically improve performance, but it involves bypassing a standard security hardening step that is typically applied to all production VMs. The administrator is tempted to implement this shortcut to quickly resolve the performance issue. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action? Option A. Implement the shortcut and then inform stakeholders of the performance improvement and the method used. Option B. Immediately implement the shortcut to address the performance issue, documenting the bypass for future review. Option C. Advise the junior administrator to ignore the shortcut and proceed with the standard, time-consuming performance optimization procedures. Option D. Report the shortcut to a senior administrator or security team, requesting a formal review of its security implications and potential for inclusion in approved configurations. The correct answer is B. Immediately implement the shortcut to address the performance issue, documenting the bypass for future review. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and confidentiality, while also addressing a critical business need for performance optimization. The conflict arises from the potential for unauthorized access or modification of sensitive data if the proposed solution is implemented without proper oversight and adherence to security protocols. The pressure to deliver a performance improvement, coupled with the discovery of a potential shortcut, necessitates careful judgment to balance competing priorities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established security policies and best practices. This involves a formal change management process, including thorough security reviews, impact assessments, and obtaining necessary approvals before implementing any modifications to the vSphere environment. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and the requirement to protect sensitive data, which are fundamental to maintaining trust and compliance within any IT infrastructure. Specifically, it upholds the integrity of the data by ensuring that any changes are documented, tested, and authorized, preventing unintended data exposure or corruption. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the shortcut without proper authorization or security review represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It bypasses established controls designed to protect data and the integrity of the system, potentially leading to data breaches, unauthorized access, or system instability. This violates the principle of due diligence and could have severe consequences, including reputational damage and legal liabilities. Suggesting the shortcut to a less experienced colleague without providing full context or emphasizing the risks is also professionally irresponsible. It creates an environment where shortcuts are normalized, undermining the importance of security protocols and potentially leading to future breaches. This failure to mentor and guide ethically can have cascading negative effects on team practices and overall system security. Ignoring the shortcut and proceeding with the standard, more time-consuming process, while seemingly safe, could be considered a missed opportunity to identify and address a potential security vulnerability if the shortcut was indeed a legitimate, albeit undocumented, optimization. However, the primary failure in this incorrect approach is not in its safety, but in the lack of proactive engagement with the discovered shortcut, which could have led to a more secure and efficient solution if properly investigated. The more critical failure lies in the other incorrect options that actively promote or enable insecure practices. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core ethical and professional obligations. In this case, data security and system integrity are paramount. The next step involves assessing the proposed solution against these obligations and established policies. If a shortcut is identified, it must be rigorously evaluated for its security implications and compliance with regulations. A formal change management process, including risk assessment and stakeholder consultation, is crucial. When in doubt, seeking guidance from senior management or security experts is essential. This systematic approach ensures that business needs are met without compromising ethical standards or regulatory requirements. Question 16. Assessment of the ethical considerations for a vSphere administrator tasked with diagnosing a critical performance degradation impacting multiple customer virtual machines, where the troubleshooting process may require reviewing detailed logs that could contain sensitive customer information. Option A. Directly access and review raw, unredacted customer data logs to expedite the troubleshooting process, assuming the risk is minimal given the internal nature of the access. Option B. Share the raw, unredacted customer data logs with the entire IT operations team to facilitate a rapid, collaborative resolution of the performance issue. Option C. Anonymize or pseudonymize sensitive data within the logs before analysis, ensuring that troubleshooting can proceed without exposing personally identifiable information. Option D. Escalate the issue to management and delay troubleshooting until a policy is established for handling sensitive data and logs, even if it means prolonged system downtime. The correct answer is C. Anonymize or pseudonymize sensitive data within the logs before analysis, ensuring that troubleshooting can proceed without exposing personally identifiable information. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within a virtualized environment. The core dilemma lies in balancing the need for comprehensive system monitoring and troubleshooting with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive customer data. The vSphere administrator is privy to information that, while necessary for their job, could be misused or inadvertently exposed, leading to significant reputational damage and potential legal repercussions for the organization. The pressure to resolve performance issues quickly can tempt shortcuts that compromise data integrity or privacy. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data minimization and access control, aligning with principles of data protection and security best practices. By anonymizing or pseudonymizing sensitive data before analysis, the administrator adheres to the spirit and letter of data privacy regulations. This approach ensures that troubleshooting can occur without exposing personally identifiable information, PI, or other confidential data to unauthorized individuals or unnecessary scrutiny. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling, a key tenet of professional IT conduct. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves direct access and review of raw, unredacted customer data without a clear, documented need and appropriate authorization is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates data privacy principles, potentially breaching regulations like GDPR or similar frameworks that mandate data protection. It exposes the organization to risks of data breaches, unauthorized disclosure, and noncompliance penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance issue due to concerns about data privacy, without attempting any form of mitigation or secure analysis. This demonstrates a failure to uphold professional responsibilities to maintain system performance and stability. While privacy is paramount, a complete abdication of duty is not a professional solution. It can lead to service degradation, customer dissatisfaction, and operational inefficiencies. A third incorrect approach might be to share raw data logs with a broader team without proper vetting or anonymization, even if the intention is collaborative problem solving. This increases the attack surface for data exposure and violates the principle of least privilege, potentially leading to unauthorized access or accidental disclosure of sensitive information. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data handling. When faced with a situation requiring access to potentially sensitive data for troubleshooting, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the specific data elements that are absolutely necessary for the task. 2. Implementing technical controls to minimize exposure, such as anonymization, pseudonymization, or role-based access controls. 3. Documenting the justification for data access and the steps taken to protect it. 4. Seeking guidance from legal or compliance teams if there is any ambiguity regarding data handling requirements. This structured approach ensures that operational needs are met while upholding ethical and regulatory standards. Question 17. Comparative studies suggest that optimizing resource allocation for a critical business application running on vSphere 6.7 can significantly improve performance, but the method of implementation is crucial. Given an application experiencing intermittent performance degradation, which approach best balances the need for optimization with the imperative of maintaining service availability and adhering to sound operational practices. Option A. Manually reconfigure resource pools and DRS rules for the application's virtual machines during peak production hours to achieve immediate performance gains. Option B. Focus solely on increasing CPU and memory limits for the virtual machine hosting the application, without considering other resource contention or potential impacts on other workloads. Option C. Implement aggressive, system-wide resource allocation adjustments immediately across all hosts serving the application, without prior testing or rollback planning. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive baseline performance analysis of the application and its underlying infrastructure. Then implement resource adjustments in a phased manner, with continuous monitoring and a clearly defined rollback strategy. The correct answer is C. Implement aggressive, system-wide resource allocation adjustments immediately across all hosts serving the application, without prior testing or rollback planning. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in optimizing vSphere 6.7 resource allocation for a critical application, balancing performance gains with potential disruption and compliance. The core difficulty lies in predicting the impact of resource adjustments on application stability, and ensuring that any changes adhere to established operational procedures and performance baselines, which are implicitly governed by the principles of efficient IT service delivery expected within the scope of professional VMware certifications. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout with thorough monitoring and rollback capabilities, represents best professional practice because it embodies a risk-averse and iterative methodology. This aligns with the principles of change management and operational excellence, ensuring that performance improvements are validated before full implementation and that any adverse effects are quickly mitigated. This systematic process minimizes the risk of application downtime or degradation, which could have significant business implications and potentially violate service-level agreements, SLAs, or internal governance policies. An incorrect approach that bypasses staged deployment and rollback planning introduces unacceptable risk. Such an action would be professionally unsound, as it disregards the fundamental tenets of IT change management, which are designed to protect service availability. It could lead to unforeseen performance bottlenecks or outright application failure, directly impacting business operations and potentially leading to breaches of contractual obligations or internal compliance standards. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on aggressive resource allocation without baseline comparison, fails to establish a clear measure of success or failure. This makes it impossible to objectively determine if the optimization has yielded positive results or if it has inadvertently degraded performance. This lack of objective measurement is a failure in professional due diligence and can lead to misinformed decisions and wasted resources. Finally, an approach that prioritizes immediate, large-scale changes without considering the application's specific workload characteristics or dependencies is inherently flawed. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the application's behavior under load and the interconnectedness of the virtualized environment. Such a broad-stroke approach increases the likelihood of unintended consequences and is contrary to the principle of targeted, informed optimization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the application's current performance baseline and critical dependencies. 2. Developing a detailed change plan that includes specific, measurable objectives, a phased implementation strategy, and a robust rollback plan. 3. Implementing changes incrementally, with continuous monitoring of key performance indicators, KPI, and application health. 4. Validating the success of each phase before proceeding to the next. 5. Documenting all changes and their outcomes for future reference and continuous improvement. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential security vulnerability has been identified within the vSphere 6.7 environment, with reports suggesting it could impact the availability of critical virtual machines. The IT operations team is under pressure to resolve this issue quickly to prevent any disruption to business operations. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the vSphere administrator? Option A. Continue with normal operations and monitor the environment for any signs of exploitation, deferring action until a confirmed incident occurs. Option B. Immediately apply all available security patches and updates to the vSphere environment to address the reported vulnerability. Option C. Escalate the issue directly to senior management with a request for immediate emergency funding for a complete environment overhaul. Option D. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to understand the vulnerability impact, likelihood, and potential mitigation strategies before implementing any changes. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to understand the vulnerability impact, likelihood, and potential mitigation strategies before implementing any changes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for system availability with the long-term security posture of the vSphere environment. The core of the challenge lies in the inherent tension between rapid remediation and thorough risk assessment, especially when dealing with potential vulnerabilities that could impact critical business operations. Careful judgment is required to avoid overreacting with potentially disruptive solutions or underreacting and leaving the environment exposed. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and informed decision-making process aligned with established risk management principles. By conducting a thorough risk assessment, including impact analysis, likelihood estimation, and the identification of existing controls, the team can make a data-driven decision about the most appropriate remediation strategy. This aligns with the general principles of IT governance and security best practices, which emphasize proactive risk management and the implementation of controls proportionate to the identified risks. While specific regulations for the 2V0-21-19 exam are not provided as a jurisdiction, the principles of due diligence and responsible system management are universally applicable in professional IT environments. An incorrect approach that involves immediately applying all available patches without prior assessment fails to consider the potential for unintended consequences. Patches, while intended to fix vulnerabilities, can sometimes introduce new issues, cause compatibility problems with existing applications, or disrupt critical services. This hasty action could lead to significant downtime and operational impact, which is a failure of due diligence and responsible system administration. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the feedback and continue with normal operations, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for stakeholder concerns and a failure to proactively address potential security threats. This could lead to a breach, data loss, or service disruption, resulting in reputational damage, financial penalties, and a loss of trust. It violates the fundamental professional responsibility to maintain the security and integrity of the systems under one's care. A third incorrect approach, which is to escalate the issue to senior management without any initial analysis, bypasses the professional responsibility to first attempt to understand and mitigate the problem at an operational level. While escalation is sometimes necessary, doing so without any preliminary assessment means that senior management is not provided with the necessary context to make informed decisions, potentially leading to inefficient resource allocation or inappropriate strategic directives. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, acknowledge and validate stakeholder feedback. Second, gather all relevant information about the reported issue, including the nature of the vulnerability, its potential impact, and the affected systems. Third, conduct a risk assessment to quantify the threat. Fourth, evaluate potential remediation options, considering their effectiveness, feasibility, and potential side effects. Fifth, select the most appropriate remediation strategy based on the risk assessment and business impact. Finally, communicate the plan and its execution to stakeholders. Question 19. To address the challenge of improving the efficiency of virtual machine provisioning and management within a vSphere 6.7 environment, which of the following approaches best aligns with process optimization principles while maintaining operational integrity and compliance? Option A. Disabling detailed logging on all vSphere components to reduce storage overhead and improve system responsiveness. Option B. Implementing automated workflows for routine tasks, coupled with a robust monitoring system that flags deviations from baseline performance metrics for proactive intervention. Option C. Prioritizing the consolidation of all existing VM templates into a single, monolithic template to simplify management, regardless of workload-specific requirements. Option D. Significantly reducing the number of approval steps in the change management process for all new VM deployments to accelerate delivery times. Correct answer is B. Implementing automated workflows for routine tasks, coupled with a robust monitoring system that flags deviations from baseline performance metrics for proactive intervention. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in IT operations, balancing the need for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain system stability and compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that yield tangible improvements without introducing undue risk or violating established operational procedures and security mandates. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial changes and genuine enhancements that address root causes of inefficiency. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically analyzes existing workflows, identifies bottlenecks through data-driven insights, and proposes targeted improvements. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and operational excellence, which are implicitly valued in professional IT environments. By focusing on measurable outcomes and user impact, it ensures that optimizations are not only technically sound, but also strategically beneficial. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and fosters a culture of evidence-based decision-making, crucial for maintaining trust and reliability in IT services. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing the speed of deployment without adequate testing or validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. This could lead to the introduction of vulnerabilities, data breaches, or service disruptions, potentially violating data protection regulations and service-level agreements. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over process integrity might lead to the elimination of critical oversight steps, increasing the likelihood of errors and non-compliance with security policies. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses established change management procedures, even with good intentions, undermines the auditability and accountability of IT operations, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory requirement. Professional reasoning in such situations should involve a structured problem-solving framework. This includes clearly defining the problem, gathering relevant data on current processes and their performance, identifying potential solutions, evaluating the risks and benefits of each solution against established criteria, including compliance and stability, implementing the chosen solution with appropriate controls, and finally, monitoring and evaluating the results to ensure sustained improvement. This iterative process ensures that optimizations are effective, efficient, and compliant. Question 20. The monitoring system demonstrates a critical alert indicating a sustained spike in disk latency across multiple data stores, impacting the performance of several critical virtual machines. What is the most professional and effective first step to diagnose and address this issue? Option A. Review vCenter performance charts for disk latency, I/O operations per second, IOPS, and throughput for the affected data stores and XC hosts, correlating with recent VM activity and system logs. Option B. Contact the storage vendor support team to report a potential hardware failure on the SAN. Option C. Begin restarting the affected virtual machines and their associated XC hosts to clear potential resource contention. Option D. Immediately initiate a data store rescan and check for any visible hardware errors on the storage array. The correct answer is D. Immediately initiate a data store rescan and check for any visible hardware errors on the storage array. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a critical alert regarding a significant performance degradation impacting multiple virtual machines within a vSphere 6.7 environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate and accurate diagnosis to minimize service disruption and potential data loss, while adhering to best practices for vSphere management and operational integrity. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly can lead to hasty decisions that might overlook crucial diagnostic steps or introduce further complications. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation using vSphere's built-in monitoring tools and logs. This aligns with the principle of proactive system management and operational resilience, which are implicitly expected in professional IT environments. By correlating performance metrics, CPU, memory, disk I/O network, with recent changes or events, and by examining vCenter and XC logs, a root cause can be identified efficiently and accurately. This methodical approach ensures that the resolution is targeted and effective, preventing recurrence and maintaining the stability of the virtual infrastructure. This is best professional practice as it prioritizes data integrity, system availability, and efficient resource utilization, all fundamental to maintaining a robust and reliable virtualized environment. An incorrect approach would be to immediately restart services or virtual machines without a proper diagnosis. This is professionally unacceptable because it is a reactive, brute force method that can mask the underlying issue, lead to data corruption if not handled correctly, and cause unnecessary downtime. It fails to address the root cause, making the problem likely to recur. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on anecdotal evidence or the most recent user complaint without consulting system logs or performance data. This is a failure of due diligence and can lead to misdiagnosis and wasted effort on the wrong problem. Furthermore, making configuration changes to other systems or network devices without understanding their impact on the vSphere environment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it demonstrates a lack of controlled change management and a disregard for potential cascading failures. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured troubleshooting methodology. First, clearly define the problem and its scope. Second, gather all relevant data from monitoring tools, logs, and user reports. Third, form hypotheses about potential causes and prioritize them based on likelihood and impact. Fourth, test hypotheses systematically, starting with the least intrusive methods. Fifth, implement the solution, document the process and outcome, and monitor for recurrence. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, actions are deliberate, and the overall stability and performance of the vSphere environment are maintained.